all there.
I did a rotomel ages ago, and it was like mass quantities of rose petals, like a great big bag full of rose petals in a 5-gallon batch. And I ended up finishing it because it went drier than I particularly like in my meads. And at the time, I wasn't as knowledgeable. This was quite a while ago. I wasn't as knowledgeable about how to make it stop, you know, or how to use the right yeast, you know. And so it went a little drier, and I thought, okay, well, I really want to keep that rose flavor, but how do I do that? So I trotted my little happy ass down to the local Middle Eastern store where I love to go and eat, and it's like a store and a restaurant. And it's down for anybody who happens to be in the Central North Carolina area. It's down by Meredith College. It's called Niamande. But anyway, they have this great grocery there. So I bought me a bottle of rose water, which of course is another you see it everywhere in Middle Eastern and Mediterranean cooking. And it was amazing. I added a little, just kept adding a little and tasting until I got to where I wanted it to be with that rose flavor, and it was perfect. I literally had to beat people off with a stick for taking that from me bottling. I mean, it was probably one of my best meads.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like, too, I mean, that brings up to mind something that we have some distillers here in the area, and I think, you know, rosewater being a hydrosol, basically, that's one that I really hope more people get into playing with, is actually using hydrosols as, like, base water in meads. It's something that's on my radar. I haven't done it. But you basically talk with, you know, like William Siff would be a great person up at Gulch Red Apothecary in New Hampshire. He distills there. So he's one of the only people on the East Coast that I'm familiar with who distills. But when you distill essential oils, you get a water fraction off that still maintains a lot of that scent from the plant. And so you can use, like, you know, Doug fir hydrosol, for instance, a fir hydrosol to get that pinaceous type of quality. And you can build that into the basis of the recipe as a portion, almost like what you were doing with the rose water. So it's something that, again, as far as metheglins, I think that's an opportunity for people to have a very subtle hand and to really have this very delicate and nuanced herbal presence and have a lot more control over it potentially. About, okay, how heavy do we make the fir resin here, right? How heavy do we make the rose presence? How heavy do we make the peppermint presence? Things like that. And for me, like I said, it's something that's exciting to me, and I haven't really tracked down yet. So I hope somebody does soon.
So, how many meads are you guys fielding right now? I mean, how many different types of mead do you have professionally? I imagine you got quite a bit, you know, at home experimentally, but, you know, what are you actually selling?
I know, I was just kind of working on like a Cacao Nib Damiana one here while we're talking, but that's probably just going to be on tap, I think. And
okay, well,
but
you
yeah, I think
do realize that when I come out to Washington in November that you will be getting a visit from me. Just saying.
Hey, that sounds great.
Yeah.
We'll my tasting room up here in Mead will be closed, but we will be open down in Spokane itself, so we'll have a tap room down there.
And my daughter's in DuPont over by Tacoma. She's in the Army, so.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, she at the base. I got a grandbaby coming, so I'm going to be in Washington for a couple of months.
Oh man, that'll be tough. I have to go see Chris over at Lewis McCord.
Oh, I know. Well, Chris is like 2 miles from my daughter, so if I don't go see him, he'll probably beat me. But yeah, there's about 15 meaderies in Washington. Actually, if you're a member, are you a member of the Greater Washington Mead Makers Group thingy? Whatever?
Yes.
All right, Chris is trying to lure me to that.
Loosely affiliated. We just started.
Right. Yeah, Chris is trying to lure me to that camping trip you guys are putting together in that pretty house. So.
Yeah. He unfortunately didn't manage to lure me there even, so it's I was kind of the deadbeat of the group probably. But
well, there's another one coming up, I guess, sometime in December. So anyway, back on target though.
There you go.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So what have you guys got?
So yeah, I think it's like
right
17. I think the number is 17, maybe. Because we produce 6-ish sessions. Depends on, if you count like the yarrow wit and the dandelion wit as one, it's probably 6 sessions, I think maybe 7. And then, I want to say we're at 12 full-strength meads by the time we finish releasing this year, because there's a couple that are going to drop We've got an oak saffron that's infusing right now. That takes about 2.5 months of time in tank to get everything to work right. So that's about halfway through that infusion cycle.
Okay.
And spiced apples coming up. Raspberry is actually just finally getting made this year. Took us forever. But yeah, I think it's 17 all told. And a big piece of it's because we honestly have an ability to make 12 gallons of a mead if we have to. You know, we'll just pop a couple of carboys down off of our base wine. So that's one of the big things we built for from starting out, because we were such a small production level to start with, is almost all of our meads can be produced from the same basic batch of wine. And so 10 of those I can make from, I can make all 10 out of a 1,000-liter tank if I need to. And if I don't, then of course I commit more to one or two types, or I let the honey speak and pair it with herbs based on how it tastes and things like that. But if we're in a real crunch, we can produce a lot of different types pretty quickly. Really the hawthorn tulsi, the saffron, because of the oak chips that are in that one, are two that we can't really do anything but that. But other than that, everything else can be made with any honey we get, pretty much. So we can produce a lot of different types pretty simply out of our facility.
Nice. So you're working with base batches and then splitting into the various and sundry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, we operate, like I said, that way more from necessity as far as having a variety of products for our customers than preference necessarily. But at this point, what's nice is we're getting just a little tiny bit ahead of demand. And so, we're fermenting 3,000 to 4,000 liters of mead a month, and we're just a little ahead of what we're retailing right now, pretty much. And so, what's nice is I get to actually taste each batch, and I can say, you know what, it's going to make these 2 meads. That's it. That's what it's best for. So that's what we're making. That's been this year, finally, that we're getting to that point with it. And I guess maybe I'm just getting stubborn enough that I'm willing to be out of things for a while if I have to be to find the right honey.
It's okay.
Yeah, this is the first year where I've been like, you know what, guys, I promise it'll be worth it. You're going to have to wait a while.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the 2 changes that happen. We just have more production, and I just am a little bit more of a backbone on my side of things.
So where's your honey coming from? I'm assuming that you're getting various. I know you like to buy local. So are you getting your honey all locally, or are you now having to go range further afield because of quantity?
We've got about a 250-mile radius right now, is as far out as we go.
Okay.
So we've gone eastern Montana, and then over into the west side, Centralia, Washington, which is between Seattle and Portland and the I-5 corridor. So it's maybe 275 miles or something. But both of those cases are actually for alfalfa honey, of all things. Sourcing from smaller producers of alfalfa has been more difficult for us, it seems like, in this area. And that's just, a lot of it has to do with the climate. Here we get, we're a continental Mediterranean climate, and so as soon as the alfalfa starts to flower, it's sunny and it's dry and it's hot, so they cut it and they make hay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It doesn't really rain most years. Exactly. You make hay while the sun shines. Well, here in Eastern Washington, the sun shines pretty much straight through from June to about now. And so you get 3 cuttings almost clean of rain most years.
Wow.
And so we don't get that much alfalfa out of the inland Northwest. I have to kind of go over the Rockies a little bit, or I have to go over to the west side of the state so far. But other than that, everything we're tasting right now comes from as far as Moses Lake, which is an hour and a half of drive time. So it's, maybe 100 miles, 150, I think is what I gave it to be generous. So all of our wines are within that radius right now. And obviously not most of our herbs, but a lot of our herbs are getting closer and closer as well as we develop relationships with farmers in the area to get them growing the things that we need and provide them a market for it.
That's pretty cool.
And obviously the hops, I live in the largest hop growing region on earth right now, so that's pretty easy to find close to home. But Yeah, some of our stuff, like the Hawthorne Tulsi this year, the furthest distance it's going to travel is there's a place called Tolstoy Farms, which I want to say is 60 miles from here, and that'll be the furthest ingredient traveled as far as the baseline of that mead.
Wow.
The honey will be from 50 miles from here, 49 miles from here. The Hawthorne is from right here, within a mile of production, and we actually harvest all of it on our property here so far. So some of them are getting very local. Some of them, obviously vanilla doesn't grow here. I'm growing ginger inside to actually redo the first mead I ever made next year. But, I'll have enough to make maybe 12, 15 gallons, something like that, with homegrown ginger, and we'll see how that goes. But we do try to source as much as we can from the local landscape, because fundamentally, guys like Tom Foote that grow lemon balm, he's a permaculturalist. He grows a really wide diversity of plants with a really wide diversity of flowering times, and he grows it in a mixed story, like food forest type design. And so he provides tons of habitat for not just honeybees, but all of our native pollinators. He provides tons of forage for all of them, and he doesn't use biocides. And so he's not somebody that's going to be killing things on his property. He's going to be looking for, okay, I've got too many slugs, what do I do about that? Guess I get a few ducks. Cool.
Ducks are good for that.
So that's kind of how we're trying to source, just to help pivot the food system and the local agricultural system more toward a biodiverse, sustainable smallholding model through who we're buying honey from and who we're buying herbs from and everything else.
I think we need to get you and Frank Goldbeck from Golden Coast on together. That should be interesting.
Dude, I love that guy.
Isn't he great? Yeah.
I think we've had his article reposted on our page like 4 times. We're just like, this is incredible. You need to read it.
Oh, yeah. He's really awesome. We've had him on the show, and he's a good friend. He's a really awesome person. Just, up in person and on the phone and every other way. But yeah, they're very similar to you. They are really into supporting their local, their local economy and their local people, as well as really tying their meat back to the biodiversity, the supporting the ecological system that forms up around bees. And and all of that comes into that. So, but they don't have their herbal, they're not coming at it from the herbalist background that you are. So there's some interesting diversions there that I think would be really interesting to explore.
Well, no, but he's doing all these wild souring organisms and things like that. So he's doing a lot of really cool work as well.
Yeah, his meads are excellent. If you haven't had them, I highly recommend them.
I haven't had a chance yet. I've been looking for them, but I haven't had a chance yet.
Yeah,
so.
Well, they're not spread out real far yet. I think they are available on Vino Shippers. You might want to check. But the question begs to be asked, since you're in Washington. Have you played with meadow foam, or is that too far outside the range that you're working in right now?
I haven't, but it's not based on any opposition to it. We'll say it that way.
Okay.
That's a regional honey.
I don't know where you are geographically in relation to the meadow foam growing areas. So
I'm basically in Idaho functionally.
Oh, okay.
I'm in northern Idaho basically. So when you think of where I am, that little skinny but panhandle up there. I'm the part where if I drive 3 hours, I go through 3 states.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And actually probably less than that, because I used to commute to Coeur d'Alene for a job, and so I commuted into Idaho from kind of the border town, Liberty Lake. And so, we're maybe a half hour from the border with Idaho, and then it takes you about a half hour to drive through Idaho to Montana.
Yeah.
It's probably only an hour and a half.
Yeah. So I can see Montana.
Yeah, darn near. Meadow foam, of course, coming off of more of the west side. We haven't sourced it yet. Part of it's that I have not had a mead that I'm really crazy into having that flavor profile, that almost toasted marshmallow profile for. Our Cacao Damiano might benefit from that, so that might be one that we pull it in for to really push that nice chocolate note.
Yeah. I could see creating
know.
almost a sort of chop